Let's take a look at some charts on Cardano from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So Cardano is now a staking coin, or a coin that uses a staking mechanism. They remain relatively centralized, despite what Charles Hoskinson has to say. I will give evidence for that later in this video. But if we compare some of the staking coins with data that I can reliably find, now there are many more staking coins that I'd like to include here. It's just hard to get data for all those coins. So you can see ADA is clearly leading in market cap, total transaction volume, GitHub commits. So the transaction volume will probably quiet down after this initial proof of stake transition quiets down. And it already has. It was in the hundreds of millions and now it's in the tens of millions. So right now it kind of is meaningless because it's kind of a one-time event as far as the migration is concerned. Fees are middle of the road. Transactions, basically the bottom. Active addresses, basically the bottom. Tron's active addresses are laughable, but I included them anyway. Normally I just throw all of Tron data out the window because it's kind of pointless, but they've gotten more and more USDT on Tron. So that's probably influencing this active addresses count a bit. Now, if we look at the Shelley Plan, which is the current code release, there was a hard fork. There was the incentivized testnet rewards available, staking rewards available on August 18th. We'll see what predictably happened with price after August 18th. But in the interim, you get your hype. It's like buy the rumor, sell the news. You get your hype, price goes way up, and everybody gets their rewards. And what do you do if you have a windfall? If you are in massive profits, you're going to sell. Any reasonable person is going to sell who's up 300, 400, 600%. That's just the way it works. So it's no surprise that price has tumbled since the 18th. If we look at their plans for moving to an increased decentralization on the chain, you can see it starts with all the nodes being IOHK nodes, core nodes, validators, whatever word you want to use. And then it slowly transitions to all the blocks are produced by the pools and not IOHK. So this will take time for the network to make the transition. We're currently here, where most of the blocks are produced by core nodes from IOHK. It's still, in my opinion, relatively centralized, as was the testnet, as was anything before the testnet. This is their own words here. You can argue with me all you want, ADA people, about centralization. But I like their goal. I like their roadmap. The issue is obviously giving trust to the pools, the stake pools. That's like the most vulnerable part of this, because anytime the core nodes lose control, the IOHK nodes, there's a high risk that something might happen. Not saying something will happen, but that's the time at which something could happen. Chain split, double spends, reorg, all sorts of weirdness, right? Like anytime you're moving to decentralization, stuff can happen. So that's going to be an interesting time for ADA. Not trying to FUD or anything, but that's a pay attention period for sure for everybody. Devs, traders, anybody involved. If we look at the current value being staked on ADA in the blue here, it's like 5th or 6th when you compare all of the staking coins. Tezos, DOT, Algo, Band, EOS, SNX, Atom, all those are up there. ADA has 43% of its total circulating supply being staked. Tezos has like 80+%. So a lot of the market cap is currently locked in staking. If you look at transaction counts and average transaction sizes, it's no surprise that as price goes up, transaction counts go up. Usually it's hand in hand. One of the reasons why I even pay attention to this at all, as far as on-chain metrics. So since the incentivized testnet late last year, the network has finally started to pick up as far as on-chain transactions. This stuff in mid-19 was speculation, most likely related exclusively. This is more of a fundamental shift in the chain itself. So it's bullish from an on-chain perspective, as is the mean transaction sizes. Those are up, likely relative to price as well. If you look at active addresses at an all-time high, no surprise, chain migration. Everybody's going to be moving coins around. You're going to have staking pools now, so staked addresses get ADA ever so often, and that's going to increase the active address count as it does for any staking coin. NVT is basically near an all-time low or at an all-time low. You can't really read into that too much because, again, if the entire chain is migrating or people are moving into staking pools all at once, it's not necessarily economic utility in the sense that it's going to like move price reliably. It clearly did in this specific case because of the fundamental event, I think, brought speculators in. But it's tough to say like, oh, we're moving from proof of work to proof of stake. So that alone is going to move price up, or that alone will move NVT down, and we should rely on that as a bullish metric. So there's a mixture of speculation and chain migration here in this NVT. More bullish than bearish, certainly, but it's not. I don't think it's as bullish as it looks in a vacuum. If you look at Google Trends for Cardano, the word, they were essentially flat for 2 years, and then recently you get these multiple peaks in searches, which is bullish and should mirror price. Searches are down over the past couple of weeks, it looks like, as is price. So no shocker there that if this doesn't, keep increasing, the interest is waning, speculation wanes with it. Let's look at some technicals. We have 5,200 EMAs, VPVR, volume, RSI, and yearly pivots. The first thing I saw on this chart, honestly, was this RSI. How it's basically almost below 30 again very quickly. So if I'm a buyer here, I'm looking for a bullish divergence, which is a lower low in price and a higher low in RSI. It's got a week or two for an attempt like that, most likely. It's got to find a bottom first. Right now it's just free fall. I highlighted August 18th because that's the stake and reward release date. And wouldn't you know, coincidence or not, straight down from there. We also were bearish divergencing, if that's a word, at the pivot here. Never want to see that. Price kind of just paused at the pivot and failed to continue from there. So now there's resistance at 13 cents and 16 cents. There's support at 9. There's support at 4. But it looks like it's going to reconsolidate somewhere around 8, 9. I doubt this goes back to 4. Watch for that bullish divergence over the next couple of weeks. Cloud has also said enough's enough. It had its Kuma breakout, beautiful trend, exactly what you want to see. It didn't even get a Kijun bounce. It was just Tenkan bounces over and over again, Tenkan, and then it just broke. So now it's in the cloud, it's a no trade zone. It's definitely not a long zone. You had your TK bear cross relatively late to the highs here. So you're missing, a certain percentage from the high. But nonetheless, it tells you definitely out of your longs for sure. And wait till we're either above the cloud again, which is bullish, or below the cloud, which is more bearish than it is now. Right now, it's just neutral. So this has probably got a month on it as far as an actionable trade, whereas you can look for bullish divergences here on the 200, on this VPVR, on the pivot within the next 2 weeks, I think, if you want to buy that knife. And lastly, looking at Cardano BTC, oh man, down 40% from the highs or more, 42%, something like that. Absolute rocket ship that came straight back down. There's this chart pattern called an Eiffel Tower, very similar to this, where it goes straight up, straight down. Cardano seems to love that Eiffel Tower pattern. It wouldn't surprise me to reconsolidate at the 200 at the pivot. Same thing with the USD pair. But the cloud says definitely leave this alone. This is still in a free fall, basically. Not something you want to just get into if you don't want to risk a large percentage of the trade, just because this could keep going. There's really no telling where this stops if it doesn't hold at the pivot in the 200. Like clearly it's gonna chill down here a little bit. So we're gonna find support here. So there's plenty of reasons it shouldn't go past the current level. But if you're stuck at the top and you're out 40% already, you're getting nervous if you haven't sold. Most likely, most people, especially newer people, newer traders who buy the FOMO, buy near the top, panic, begin panicking more and more and more every day. I mean, that's what you're seeing on the chart here. This is just panic, sheer panic, just FOMO manipulation, and then panic every time. So I'd again be looking for bullish divergences here. They should be starting to appear. As it is, you're getting lows on lower volume. But you want a firm low attempt and then another low past that previous low to tell you, okay, this is a little crazy, a little silly. Bears are a little out of control. The fear is a little much here. Now's a good time to buy. So ADA is still in transition period in many respects. They've moved from purely whatever they were to proof of stake. And that transition will continue for many months to come.